The orbital station floated quietly in the darkness of space. Below it, the gas giant floor glowed with bands of orange and purple. The station was old but clean. It was a place where ships stopped to refuel, a place where traders bought and sold goods, a place where beings from many worlds shared food and stories. Had lived on for 3 years. She was 26 years old, small in height and quiet in nature. Her job was simple. She counted supplies. She filed reports. She made sure the right things went to the right places. Nobody noticed her much, and she liked it that way. Every day at noon, she took her lunch in the cafeteria on Deck 7. She always sat at Table 9 near the window that looked out at the stars. She always ate the same thing, rice from the food machines, vegetables that were not real but tasted close enough. She used metal chopsticks that she had brought from Earth. The tray under her bowl was standard issue, heavy aluminum, cold to the touch. On this particular day, the cafeteria was busy. Workers from the engineering section talked loudly at one table. A group of alien traders with blue skin and 4 arms sat in the corner, drinking something that smelled like flowers. Near the door, an old man named was telling jokes to 2 young technicians. Was 70 years old. He had white hair and a kind face. He reminded of her grandfather who had died when she was 12. Was halfway through her rice when the doors exploded inward. The sound was terrible. Metal screamed as it bent. Smoke filled the air. People screamed too. Through the smoke came figures in black armor. They were tall. Their skin was scaled like lizards. Their eyes were yellow and cold. They carried weapons that glowed with blue light. Knew them from the news feeds. A warrior species from the outer systems. Dangerous, cruel. They worked as soldiers for hire. They called themselves the Plasma Squad. The leader was the largest of them. He stood 7 feet tall. His scales were dark green, almost black. A scar ran across his face from his forehead to his jaw. His name, would later learn, was. Raised one clawed hand. The cafeteria fell silent except for the crying of a young woman somewhere near the kitchen. "This station now belongs to the Dominion," said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "You will not resist. You will not run. You will be our hostages until your governments pay what we demand." The workers stared in shock. Some dropped to the floor. Others raised their hands. The alien traders in the corner did not move. They knew better than to fight the. One of the soldiers walked toward. The old man was still standing. His face showed no fear, only confusion. "On your knees, old one," the soldier said. Did not move fast enough. The soldier struck him across the face with the back of his clawed hand. Fell hard. Blood came from his nose and mouth. He tried to get up but could not. Something changed in. She had been sitting frozen like everyone else. Her chopsticks were still in her hand. Her rice was getting cold. But when she saw the blood on his white hair, something deep inside her woke up. It was not anger. Not exactly. It was something older, something that lived in the bones of every human, a voice that said, "No, not here, not him, not today." She set down her chopsticks very carefully. She placed them beside her bowl. Then she picked up her tray. The tray was heavy, solid aluminum alloy. It had edges that were slightly sharp from years of use. It was not a weapon. It was just a tray, but in that moment it was enough. Stood up. Nobody noticed her. All eyes were on his soldiers. They were laughing at who was still trying to rise from the floor. They did not see the small human woman walking toward them. They did not see the tray in her hands. The first soldier never knew what happened. One moment he was standing over. The next moment, something hit him under the jaw with terrible force. The crack of the impact echoed through the silent cafeteria. He dropped like a stone and did not move. Turned. For one heartbeat, time seemed to stop. The great leader stared at the small human woman. She was barely 5 feet tall. She weighed perhaps 50 kilograms. In her hands was a cafeteria tray, now slightly bent from the impact. What began? He did not finish, was already moving. She had learned taekwondo as a child. Her grandmother had taught her, not at a fancy school but in the backyard of their house inn. Her grandmother had been a small woman too. She had always said that size did not matter, speed mattered, precision mattered, the willingness to act when others froze, that mattered most of all. Drove the edge of the tray into the soft tissue under his jaw. He made a choking sound. His plasma rifle came up, but she was inside his reach now, too close for him to aim. She hooked her foot behind his leg, another thing her grandmother had taught her, and pushed. Fell. The cafeteria erupted into chaos. Soldiers shouted. Plasma bolts lit the air, but was not standing still. She moved between the shots like water flowing around stones. The tray became a shield. A plasma bolt hit it and the metal glowed orange, but it held. She swung it into another soldier's face. He went down. A third soldier grabbed for her. She ducked under his arms and drove her knee into the joint where his leg bent backward. Anatomy was different from human anatomy, but joints were joints. He screamed as it broke. A fourth soldier raised his weapon, threw the tray. It spun through the air and struck him in the throat. He dropped his rifle and fell to his knees, gasping for breath. Then there was silence. Stood in the center of the cafeteria. Her chest was heaving. Her hands were shaking. Around her lay 4 unconscious or disabled soldiers. The remaining 8 had retreated to the corridor. They were shouting at each other in their own language. They sounded confused, scared. A young communications officer who had hidden under a table would later describe what she saw. It was not like the movies. There was no battle cry, no dramatic speech. She just moved, like her body knew exactly what to do, like she had been waiting her whole life for someone to give her permission to fight. Looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. She looked at the fallen soldiers. She looked at who was staring at her with wide eyes. Blood was still dripping from his face. "Are you all right?" she asked him. Laughed. It hurt his broken nose, but he laughed anyway. "I think," he said slowly, "that I should be asking you that question." Did not answer. She was looking at the corridor where the remaining soldiers had retreated. She was thinking about the command deck, about engineering, about all the people on this station who were counting on someone to save them. She bent down and picked up her tray. It was dented now, scorched, but still solid. The fight was not over. It was only beginning. The 8 remaining soldiers had taken positions in the corridor outside the cafeteria, could hear them talking in their rough language. She did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. They were angry. They were confused. They were also afraid. Good, she thought, they should be afraid. She crouched behind an overturned table near the cafeteria door. The tray was still in her hand. In her other hand was a plasma pistol she had taken from one of the fallen soldiers. She had never fired a plasma weapon before. She had never fired any weapon before. But she had watched enough training videos during her safety certifications to understand the basics. Point squeeze, do not think too much. Behind her, the other workers were slowly getting to their feet. Most of them looked terrified. Some were crying. A few were staring at like she had grown a second head. Limped over to her. Blood had dried on his face. One of his eyes was swelling shut, but his good eye was bright and sharp. "I was a Marine," he said quietly. 40 years ago, before I became an engineer, before I got old and soft." Looked at him. "Can you still fight?" Smiled. Several of his teeth were missing now. "My body remembers, even if my mind has forgotten. Give me something to hold and I will stand beside you." He picked up a metal chair. It was heavy and awkward, but he held it like he knew how to use it. A woman named came forward next. She was in her 30s, with dirt under her fingernails and leaves in her hair. She worked in the hydroponics bay, growing vegetables for the station. In her hands was a fire extinguisher. "I have never hit anyone in my life," said. Her voice was shaking, but her eyes were steady. "But those things hurt. They are threatening our home. I will learn." More people came forward. a maintenance technician with thick arms and a bald head. He carried a heavy wrench that he used for fixing pipes. A kitchen worker who was barely 20 years old. She still wore her white apron. In her hand was a knife she used for cutting vegetables. Her face was pale with fear, but she did not run. A cargo handler who spent his days moving heavy boxes. He had picked up a broken piece of metal from the destroyed door. One by one they came. Scientists, cooks, cleaners, engineers, they picked up whatever they could find. Chairs, tools, broken pieces of equipment. They were not soldiers, they were ordinary people, but they were ready to fight. Counted them, 37 people, 37 civilians against 12 armed soldiers. The odds were not good, but the odds did not matter. What mattered was that these people had chosen to stand. "Listen to me," said. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Everyone was watching her. "They control the command deck and engineering. They have our security team locked up somewhere. They think we will wait here like good hostages until someone pays their ransom." She paused. The plasma pistol felt strange in her hand. Heavy, warm. "We are not going to wait." A young man named raised his hand. He worked in communications. His face was pale and sweaty. "What can we do? They have plasma weapons, they have armor, we have kitchen knives and chairs." "We have something better," said. "We have knowledge, we know this station, every corridor, every maintenance tunnel, every shadow and corner. They do not." She turned to. "Can you disable the lights in Sector 7? Nodded slowly. "I can. There is a panel in the maintenance shaft behind the kitchen." "Do it. When the lights go out, we move." Gave instructions quickly and clearly. She did not ask questions. She did not wait for agreement. She simply told people what to do and they did it. Later, many of them would wonder why they followed her. She was nobody. A logistics coordinator. A woman who ate lunch alone and filed reports. But in that moment, she was the only person who seemed to know what to do. The group split into 3 teams. The first team would go to engineering. Their job was to take back control of the station's power systems. Without power, they could not lock doors or control communications. The second team would go to the detention area. Their job was to free the captured security officers. Once free, those officers could help fight. The third team would stay in the cafeteria. Their job was to distract the in the corridor, to make noise, to keep their attention focused here while the other teams moved through the maintenance tunnels. Would lead the first team. Insisted on coming with her even though he was hurt. Came too, along with 2 young engineers named and. Before they left, grabbed S's arm. "Why are you doing this?" asked. "You could hide, you could wait for rescue, why risk your life?" Looked at, who was leaning against a table and trying to catch his breath. His white hair was stained with blood. His old hands were wrapped around a metal chair leg. "He reminds me of my grandfather," said simply. "My grandfather died when I was 12. I was not there. I could not help him. I will not make that mistake again." It was not a hero's answer. There was no talk of duty or honor or saving the galaxy. It was a simple, human reason. Someone she cared about was hurt. She would not let it happen again. The teams moved out. Let's group through the maintenance tunnels. The tunnels were narrow and dark. They crawled through spaces meant for pipes and wires, not people. The metal was cold against their hands and knees. Somewhere above them, they could hear the heavy footsteps of soldiers. It took 20 minutes to reach the engineering section. 20 minutes of crawling. 20 minutes of holding their breath every time footsteps passed overhead. When they finally emerged, they found themselves in a storage room behind the main engineering bay. Through a small window in the door, they could see 3 soldiers standing guard. The soldiers looked bored, relaxed. They did not expect trouble. "Lights," whispered to. Nodded and moved to a control panel on the wall. His thick fingers worked quickly. He had spent 15 years maintaining this station. He knew every system, every switch, every weakness. The lights went out. For a moment there was perfect darkness. Then the emergency lights came on, dim and red, casting strange shadows everywhere. The soldiers shouted in confusion. They raised their weapons, looking for threats that they could not see. Moved. She was through the door before the soldiers knew what was happening. In the red light she was just a shadow, a ghost. Her tray caught the first soldier across the face. He fell without a sound. Came behind her, his wrench swinging. It connected with the second soldier's helmet. The helmet cracked. The soldier staggered, finished him with the chair leg, swinging it like a baseball bat despite his injured ribs. The third soldier fired his plasma rifle. The bolt went wide, melting a hole in the wall, ducked under his arms and drove her knee into his stomach. As he doubled over, she brought the tray down on the back of his head. 3 soldiers, 15 seconds, none of them got up. Stood in the dim red light, breathing hard. Engineering was theirs. The first step was complete. Through the station's intercom she heard distant shouts. Plasma fire. The other teams were engaging the enemy. The fight had truly begun. Whilst team took engineering, the second team was moving through the lower decks. Led this group. She was 60 years old with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. For 30 years she had worked as a medical officer on various stations and ships. She had seen injuries. She had seen death. She had never seen combat. But she understood something important. The body has weak points, no matter what species it belongs to. Her weapon was a hypospray. It was a medical tool designed to inject medicine through the skin without needles. Normally, it held painkillers or vaccines. Today, it held a sedative meant for surgery, a dose strong enough to put a human to sleep for 6 hours. She did not know if it would work on. She was about to find out. Her team was small, just 5 people, a nurse named Minu, a sanitation worker named, 2 cargo handlers named, and none of them had any combat training, but all of them had agreed to try. The detention area was on Deck 4. According to the station's records, the security team had been taken there after the boarded. 12 officers, 12 trained fighters. If could free them, the balance would shift. They moved through service corridors that they had not bothered to guard. The invaders had made a mistake. They thought humans were soft, weak. They thought civilians would cower and wait for rescue. They did not understand that humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They did not understand that every human, no matter how peaceful, carried the memory of those struggles in their blood. The detention area was guarded by 2 soldiers. They stood outside the door, plasma rifles held loosely at their sides. They were talking to each other in low voices, laughing about something. Held up her hand, her team stopped. "Minu," she whispered, "create a distraction." Minu nodded. He picked up a piece of broken metal from the floor and threw it down the corridor. It clattered loudly against the wall. The 2 soldiers turned toward the sound. One of them walked toward it, weapon raised. Moved. She was old, but she was not slow. 30 years of medical work had taught her to move quickly and quietly. She came up behind the remaining soldier and pressed the hypospray against his neck. The soft hiss of injection was almost silent. The soldier made a confused sound. His eyes rolled back. He fell. The other soldier turned at the sound of his partner falling. He saw standing there, hypospray in hand. He raised his rifle. Hit him from behind with a metal pipe. The soldier went down hard. "That was almost too easy," said. "Do not get confident," replied. "We were lucky." They opened the detention area door. Inside, 12 security officers sat in cells with energy barriers. They looked tired and angry. Their uniforms were torn. Some of them had bruises on their faces. The leader was a man named. He was in his 40s with a square jaw and calm eyes. When he saw, his expression shifted from surprise to hope. "Doctor, what is happening?" "A logistics coordinator started a revolution," said. "She found the control panel and began working on the cell locks." We are taking back the station. A logistics coordinator. Her name is. She fought 4 soldiers with a cafeteria tray. She won. Stared at her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he laughed. It was a tired, disbelieving laugh. A cafeteria tray, he repeated. It is a very sturdy tray. The cell barriers flickered and died. The security officers stepped out. They stretched their arms and rolled their shoulders. Some of them grabbed weapons from the fallen guards. How many hostiles remain? Asked. We are not sure. We took out 7, maybe 5 or 6 left. Their leader is still active. Last we heard, he was heading toward the command deck. Nodded, his calm demeanor had returned. He was a professional again. We need to link up with the other teams. Where is this? Engineering, last I knew. Turned to his officers. You are with me. The rest of you secure this deck and help any civilians you find. Move. The security officers spread out. After hours of helplessness, they were finally able to act. Their movements were quick and precise, trained, deadly. Meanwhile, on Deck 7, the 3rd team was doing their job. Led the distraction team. Their goal was simple: make noise. Keep the soldiers in the corridor focused on the cafeteria while the other teams worked. They banged on tables. They shouted. They threw things at the door. Every few minutes, someone would fire a plasma bolt into the corridor, carefully aimed to miss, but close enough to make the soldiers take cover. The soldiers were getting frustrated. They shouted threats. They fired back, but they did not advance. They were waiting for orders, waiting for to tell them what to do. However, had bigger problems. When the lights went out across the station, knew something was wrong. When he lost contact with the soldiers in engineering, he knew it was serious. When he lost contact with the detention guards, he understood the truth. The humans were fighting back. He stood on the command deck, staring at the dark monitors. The station administrator, a woman named Bora, was tied to a chair nearby. She was watching him with calm, steady eyes. Too calm. It made him uneasy. Your people are dying, growled at her. Every one of them, we will kill them all. Bora said nothing, she just watched him. What are you smiling at? Demanded. I am not smiling, Bora said. I'm just thinking about something my grandmother used to say. What? Never corner a human. We do not know how to give up. Roared with anger, he turned to his 3 remaining soldiers. Lock down the command deck. No one gets in. Anyone who tries, kill them. The soldiers moved to obey. They sealed the doors. They activated the emergency barriers. They turned the command deck into a fortress. But fortresses only work if the enemy stays outside. In the maintenance tunnels below the command deck was climbing. The tunnels were even narrower here, barely wide enough for her body. Her shoulders scraped against the walls. Her knees ached from crawling on metal grating. The tray was strapped to her back with a piece of wire. It dug into her spine with every movement. Had wanted to come with her, but she had refused. He was too hurt, too slow. This part she had to do alone. Had caught up with her at engineering. He had offered to lead the assault on the command deck. He had trained soldiers, weapons, a plan. Had shaken her head. Your soldiers are good, she had said, but they will try to fight fair. They will try to use tactics. They expect that. They are prepared for soldiers. Then what do you suggest? They are not prepared for a logistics coordinator with a tray. Had stared at her for a long moment, then he had nodded. We will create a distraction at the main door, draw their attention, give you time to get in through the maintenance access. That was the plan. Simple, crazy, probably suicidal. Kept climbing. The access hatch to the command deck was just above her now. She could hear voices through the metal, his deep growl, the nervous chatter of his soldiers, the silence of Administrator Bora. Paused, she closed her eyes. She took 3 deep breaths. She thought about her grandmother. the small woman with strong hands who had taught her to fight in a backyard inn. She thought about, with blood on his white hair. She thought about all the people on this station who were counting on her. Then she opened her eyes. She pushed open the hatch. It was time to finish this. The hatch opened without a sound, had oiled it herself 3 months ago during a routine maintenance check. Back then, she had never imagined she would be climbing through it to fight alien invaders. Life was strange that way. She pulled herself onto the command deck slowly. The room was large and circular, filled with control stations and holographic displays. Most of the displays were dark now. Emergency lighting cast everything in shades of red and shadow. Stood near the center of the room. He was even bigger than she remembered. His scales seemed to absorb the red light, making him look like a demon from old stories. The scar on his face was twisted with anger. 3 soldiers stood between him and the main door. They had their weapons pointed at the door, waiting for the assault they knew was coming. Administrator Bora was tied to a chair behind. Her face was bruised, but her eyes were alert. When she saw climbing out of the hatch, her eyes widened slightly. She did not make a sound. She did not give away. Moved into a shadow behind a control station. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure they could hear it, but they were focused on the door. They did not look back. Outside, she could hear steam making noise. Plasma bolts hit the door. Soldiers shouted demands for surrender. It was a good distraction. It would not last forever. Counted the enemies. 3 soldiers, 4 total. She had beaten 4 before in the cafeteria, but that had been surprise, that had been chaos. This was different. These soldiers were ready for a fight. They were armed, alert, dangerous. She looked at the tray in her hands. It was dented and scorched. The edges were bent from all the impacts. It had been through a lot today. So had she. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "You have to do this." She stood up and walked into the light. The soldiers spun around. Their weapons came up. For a frozen moment, everyone stared at the small human woman with the cafeteria tray. Recovered first, his yellow eyes narrowed. "You," he said, "the female from the cafeteria, you should have stayed hidden." "I thought about it," said. Her voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. "But I decided I was not finished with you." One of the soldiers laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "One female, one tray against the Dominion. This is a joke." "It is not a joke," said. "One female with a tray already took down 9 of your soldiers, and I was just warming up." Raised one clawed hand. The soldiers stopped laughing. "Kill her," ordered, slowly. The first soldier lunged. He was fast, faster than expected, but she had been watching him. She had seen the way his weight shifted before he moved. Her grandmother had taught her to read bodies, to see attacks before they happened. The soldier's claws cut through empty air. She swung the tray into the side of his head. The impact jarred her arms, but the soldier stumbled. She kicked the back of his knee. He went down. She brought the tray down on his skull. One down. The second soldier fired his plasma rifle. Was already moving, diving behind a control station. The plasma bolt melted through the station, sending sparks and smoke everywhere. She rolled to her feet and threw herself at the soldier before he could aim again. The tray hit his rifle, knocking it aside. She drove her elbow into his throat. He choked, dropping the weapon. She grabbed his arm and twisted, using his own momentum to flip him over her hip. He crashed into a console. The console exploded with electricity. He screamed and went still. 2 down. The third soldier was smarter. He did not charge. He did not fire wildly. He circled around, trying to get behind her. His eyes were cold and calculating. Watched him move. She was breathing hard now. Her arms ached. Her ribs hurt from where she had hit the floor. She was tired, so tired. But she could not stop, not yet. The soldier attacked. His movements were precise, trained. He was a warrior, not a thug. He blocked her first swing with his armored forearm. He caught her wrist when she tried to strike again. He was strong, much stronger than her. He squeezed. Pain shot through her arm. The tray fell from her fingers. Weak, the soldier hissed, like all humans. Head butted him in the face. It hurt a lot. Her forehead split open, blood running into her eyes. But it hurt the soldier more. His grip loosened. She pulled free and drove her knee into his stomach. As he doubled over, she grabbed his head with both hands and slammed it down onto her rising knee. He collapsed. 3 down. Only remained. The leader had not moved during the fight. He had watched with those cold yellow eyes, studying her, learning. Now he stepped forward and realized just how big he really was. He towered over her. His claws were longer than her fingers. His muscles rippled under his scaled skin. He was a predator built for killing. Impressive, said. For a human, but you are tired, you are hurt, and I am not like my soldiers. I have killed 100 enemies with my bare hands. You are nothing to me. Wiped blood from her eyes. She looked at her tray lying on the floor a few meters away, too far to reach. Then come and kill me, she said. Smiled, his teeth were like knives. He attacked. It was like being hit by a truck, was incredibly fast for his size. His claws slashed through the air, missing by centimeters as she threw herself backward. She hit a console, pain exploding in her back. Before she could recover, grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off the ground. You should have stayed in your place, growled. Humans are prey. You are meant to be eaten, not to fight back. Could not breathe. Her vision was going dark. She kicked at him, but her legs were too short to reach anything vital. She could hear her grandmother's voice in her head. When you cannot win with strength, win with cleverness. When you cannot win with cleverness, win with stubbornness. When you cannot win at all, make sure your enemy never forgets you. She could not breathe. She could not fight. She could not win. But she could still act. She reached into her pocket. Her fingers found the metal chopsticks she had been carrying since the cafeteria. The chopsticks her grandmother had given her before she left Earth. She drove them into Sci. The leader screamed. It was a terrible sound, full of pain and rage. He dropped and staggered backward, clawing at his face. Green blood poured between his fingers. Hit the floor hard. She gasped for breath, her throat on fire. But she was alive. She was still alive. She crawled toward her tray. Every movement hurt. Her body was screaming at her to stop, to rest, to give up. She did not listen. Her fingers closed around the bent metal. Pulled the chopsticks from his eye. He threw them aside and turned to face her. His remaining eye burned with hatred. Green blood covered half his face. I will kill you, he snarled. I will kill everyone on this station. I will burn this place to ashes. Stood up, it took everything she had. Her legs were shaking. Her arms could barely hold the tray. Blood dripped from her forehead onto the floor. You talk too much, she said. And she attacked. The final fight between and lasted less than 2 minutes. It felt like hours. Was wounded, but he was still dangerous. His one remaining eye tracked her movements with deadly focus. His claws slashed at her again and again, each swing powerful enough to cut her in half. But had learned something in this fight, something important. She could not match his strength. She could not match his speed. She could not match his training or his experience. But she could match his will, and she was starting to understand that will mattered more than anything else. Every time he knocked her down, she got up. Every time he cut her, she kept fighting. Every time he thought she was finished, she proved him wrong. She ducked under a claw strike and swung the tray into his knee. He roared and stumbled. She dodged around him and hit him across the back. He spun and grabbed for her, but she was already moving, sliding between his legs and coming up behind him. Her grandmother had taught her this, how to fight someone bigger, how to use their size against them, make them turn, make them chase, make them tired. Was getting tired. She could see it in his movements, see it in the way his attacks were getting slower, more desperate. He was bleeding from his eye, from his knee, from a dozen smaller cuts. He was not used to enemies who refused to die. "Why?" he gasped. "Why do you keep fighting? You cannot win. You are just one human." Spat blood onto the floor. Her whole body was screaming in pain. One of her ribs was probably broken. Her left arm was barely working. She could only see out of one eye because of the blood. But she smiled. "I am not just one human," she said. "I am all of them. Every person on this station who you thought was weak. Every civilian you thought would be an easy hostage. Every ordinary worker who you thought would not fight back." She raised the tray. "We are all fighting back, and we do not give up. We do not know how." Roared and charged, one final desperate attack. Did not dodge this time. She could not. Her body had nothing left. Instead, she stepped forward into his charge. His claws cut through her side. Pain exploded through her body, but she was inside his reach now, too close for him to strike again. She brought the tray up with both hands, all her remaining strength, all her will, all her stubbornness. It caught under the jaw, the same strike she had used at the beginning, the same strike that had started everything. But this time there was more power behind it. The tray bent even further. Something cracked in his jaw. He made a choking sound. His eyes rolled back. He fell. And he did not get up. Stood over him, swaying. The tray fell from her numb fingers. Her legs gave out and she collapsed to her knees. Behind her, the main doors finally burst open. His team rushed in, weapons ready. They stopped when they saw the scene. 4 soldiers lay scattered across the command deck, unconscious or worse. The feared leader of the plasma squad was face down on the floor, and in the middle of it all, a small woman was kneeling in a pool of blood, both hers and not. Ran to her side. "Can you hear me?" Looked up at him. Her face was pale. Her eyes were unfocused. "The plasma squad," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Did not stand up again. Then she passed out. She woke up 3 days later in the medical bay. Was there, checking her vitals. Was sitting in a chair beside her bed, his face covered in bandages but his eyes bright with relief. "She is awake," said. "Get the others." Within minutes the medical bay was full. Brought flowers from the hydroponics bay. Stood in the corner, nodding respectfully. Was crying, though she tried to hide it. Even was there, standing at attention like was some kind of general. "What happened?" asked. Her voice was rough. "You saved the station," said. "All hostiles have been neutralized. No civilian casualties. The Dominion has already sent a message of apology. They are claiming went rogue, that his actions were not sanctioned." "They are lying," said. "Of course they are, but they are afraid. Word of what happened here is spreading across the galaxy. The human who fought a squad with a cafeteria tray." Closed her eyes. She did not feel like a hero. She felt tired, broken, like she wanted to sleep for 100 years. "The tray," she said suddenly. "Where is it?" Laughed. "It is in a display case in the cafeteria. The workers voted. It is now a monument, a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "Of what happens when you mess with us." 6 months later, things had returned to normal on station. Ships came and went. Traders bought and sold goods. Workers ate lunch in the cafeteria on Deck 7. Still ate at Table 9. She still had rice and vegetables. She still used metal chopsticks. But now people knew her name. They nodded at her when she passed. They sometimes stopped to thank her. It made her uncomfortable, but she was getting used to it. The tray sat in its display case near the entrance, dented and scorched and bent. Someone had attached a small plaque beneath it. "The tray that saved." Across the galaxy the story spread. It changed as it traveled, as stories always do. Some versions said was a trained assassin. Some said she was a cyborg. Some said she was 7 feet tall and could shoot fire from her eyes. The truth was simpler and more powerful. She was just a woman, a logistics coordinator who filed reports and ate lunch alone, an ordinary person who had refused to be ordinary when it mattered. The Dominion issued a formal advisory to all military units. Human civilian installations were now classified as maximum threat environments. Special attention was to be paid to food service areas. Other species noticed. They had always known humans were tough, but this was different. This was a reminder that humans did not need weapons or armor or training to be dangerous. They just needed a reason to fight. Occasionally, alien visitors would come to the station and ask to meet. She always declined. "I am just a coordinator," she would say. "I file reports, I manage inventory." But the workers knew the truth, and late at night, in quiet conversations, they passed on the lesson they had learned. The most dangerous creature in the universe is not the one with the biggest weapon. It is not the one with the most soldiers. It is not the one with the best technology or the most resources. The most dangerous creature in the universe is the one who refuses to stop fighting. And that, more than anything else, is what it means to be human. Finished her lunch and put her tray in the recycling bin. She walked past the display case without looking at it. She went back to her office and started working on her reports. Somewhere across the galaxy, a commander was telling his soldiers about the human with the tray. Somewhere, an alien child was hearing the story for the first time. Somewhere, a species that had never met humans was updating their threat assessments. And in a quiet cafeteria on a quiet station, an ordinary woman was eating rice and vegetables, just like any other day. Some heroes save the galaxy with fleets of warships. Some save it with one cafeteria tray at a time.